This video is brought to you by Straight Goods News, Canada's alternative online news source. Visit straightgoods.ca.
The simple fact of the matter is that a lot of the cuts that are being made right now are part and parcel of what the Conservatives have been showing us for the past 6 years. It's sleight of hand, it's a shell game, you can never tell in advance. They have 2 sets of books for the F-35 and for other procurements. That's the biggest problem we have with the Conservatives, is transparency. You send a minister out to talk about one thing, she refuses to answer other questions. That's what we had with her today. So on our end, we're going to continue holding the government to account. That's our top priority.
Just on another thread, Mr. Mulcair, just with respect to the protests that are going on in your home province, yes. Where do you stand? Do you support the student movement, or do you support the Charest government, which you once served?
Well, you have to understand that education is first and foremost a matter of provincial jurisdiction. We also believe that the federal government's historic role in helping post-secondary education and research is something that we have to get back to. In the case of Quebec, under the Sherbrooke Declaration, which is our policy in the NDP, that would mean full transfer, no conditions. That's what the Sherbrooke Declaration means, when the federal government would be using what the Supreme Court has ruled is the federal government's power to spend in areas of exclusive jurisdiction of the provinces. Beyond that, it's a question that belongs to the National Assembly of Quebec, and those discussions are going to take place between the respective student associations and the government of that province. As the leader of the NDP, if and when we form a government, and we hope to do just that in 2015, we will make it a priority to work with the provinces to make sure that more funding does go in. If you look at OECD statistics, Canada is falling behind in terms of number of PhDs that we're producing and in terms of overall investment in research. It's a real problem for us in this country, but we're also the only country in the OECD that doesn't have a national education minister, precisely because education is a matter of provincial jurisdiction under our Constitution.
Mr. Mulcair, on the job cuts, in the round of notices today, there were a lot of positions declared eliminated, people declared surplus, StatsCan, Parks Canada, Library of Parliament. What is your concern about the spin-off effect of
That's a good question. There's spin-off effects on the local economy, of course, here in Ontario. If you look at the report that just came out from the ILO in Geneva today, you'll notice that they're saying that part of the reason that we're going through a double-dip recession now in Europe is that we cut back too quickly on stimulus and we started cutting the civil service jobs too quickly. That's exactly what we're under threat of seeing here in Canada. There seems to be no plan to deal with that eventuality. Look at the Ottawa region. It's easy to talk to anybody in the service sector to understand what those cuts are going to have. But beyond that, as someone who has always considered himself, despite being an elected official, I've always considered myself first and foremost a public administrator. And if you look at it from that point of view, your relations with your employees, it's a tragedy what's happening. You're sending out a signal of fear and insecurity amongst hundreds of thousands of people whose only job is to try to do their best to provide a service to the public. They're being targeted by this government. They're an easy target, but we tend to forget, even though it's popular sometimes to attack public servants, they're there to provide a public service, and we're all going to lose from it. When they cut $50 million, as they did in the budget, they're always telling us to read the budget, they cut $50 million in food inspections in Canada. This is the same government that presided over the death of Canadians in the listeriosis scandal. The minister who joked about it, talking about death by 1,000 poll cuts, is still sitting there as the minister. That's the Conservative problem. They're cutting direct services that will affect the public, and of course they're going to have a serious deleterious effect on the economy in the Ottawa region.